There are seasons in life when everything begins to feel quiet, strangely quiet. The noise that once filled your days begins to fade. People stop calling, opportunities dry up, conversations feel shallow. And you, who once found comfort in the busyness and affirmation of others, begin to notice that you're being pulled away from the crowd. This isn't always something you consciously choose. It's something that happens to you. It feels like the world is forgetting you. But in reality, it is God who is setting you apart. This sense of isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. When God is about to give you something big, He will first clear your space. He will remove distractions, disruptions, and even certain relationships. You may not understand why people are leaving or why you feel so alone, but the truth is, not everyone can walk with you into the next chapter. What God is preparing to place in your hands requires your full attention, and your spirit knows it, even before your mind can comprehend it. This silence is sacred. It's a space where your soul can breathe and listen. Most people miss it because they are uncomfortable with stillness. They crave noise, interaction, and external stimulation. But when the divine is about to shift something inside of you, He allows your environment to go quiet so your inner world can come alive. This is where vision is born. This is where discernment sharpens. This is where you begin to hear the whispers of purpose that were once drowned out by the chaos of life. And during this season, something else happens. You begin to notice a change in how you see the world. The things that once excited you may now feel hollow. The conversations that used to matter suddenly seem empty. You are not becoming cold or distant. You are being prepared. You are being stripped of the temporary to make room for something eternal. This is the refinement that must happen before the blessing arrives. God doesn't want to give you something big when your hands are still full of small distractions. In this phase, your spirit becomes more sensitive. You may wake up at night with thoughts you can't explain, dreams that feel prophetic, emotions that don't match your circumstances. This is the Spirit of God preparing you internally for an external shift. You begin to feel things deeper. You start noticing your own thoughts more clearly. You question more, not out of fear, but out of a deep desire for truth. This awakening is not random. It is a spiritual recalibration. Something greater is on the horizon, and you're being aligned with it, mind, body, and soul. But with alignment often comes resistance. You will notice an increase in spiritual pressure. Things may start going wrong. You may face unexpected delays, financial pressure, health concerns, or emotional stress. This isn't a sign that God is far away. It's often proof that He is closer than ever. Before the breakthrough, there is always a battle. Before the light shines, there is always darkness that tries to linger. But if you pay attention, you'll see that the very intensity of the resistance is proof that something big is coming. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. If you're being pressed, it's because heaven is preparing to release something through you. In these moments, your greatest weapon is trust. Trust even when you don't understand. Trust even when the evidence isn't there. Trust even when your heart feels tired. Because faith is what invites the impossible. God doesn't reveal the entire picture. He shows you one step at a time. Why? Because the blessing isn't just about receiving. It's about becoming. What He gives you is tied to the version of you that is willing to wait, obey, and trust even in the dark. So if you're feeling isolated, overlooked, restless, or even misunderstood, pause. Don't rush to fix it. Don't try to force your way out. Sit with it. Lean into it. This may be the exact place where something holy is taking root in your life. And when the shift finally happens, when the silence breaks, when the opportunity arrives, when the doors open, you will look back and realize that the quiet season was never empty. It was full of divine preparation. Closed doors and unexpected delays are often misinterpreted as rejection or failure. But in the spiritual journey, they are powerful signs. They are divine interventions in disguise. When God is about to give you something big, He often begins by closing the wrong doors. Not because He wants to frustrate you, but because He knows what's ahead, and He knows what must be cleared to make room for it. These closed doors are protection. They shield you from paths that would have led to limitation, distraction, or destruction. But in the moment, it rarely feels that way. In the moment, it feels like loss. It feels like confusion. You pray, you plan, you prepare, and still things don't work out. Opportunities slip through your fingers. People you were counting on walk away. What once seemed so certain now feels impossible. But this is where faith matures. This is where your understanding of divine timing begins to deepen. It's one thing to trust when the path is open. It's another to trust when every door is shut and you're left standing in a hallway of silence. That hallway is not a punishment. It's a corridor of transformation. It is the space where your heart is humbled, your mind is reshaped, and your spirit learns to trust the unseen. Delayed answers are not denials. In fact, delays are often the clearest signs that God is orchestrating something far bigger than your original request. If you received what you wanted on your schedule, it would have been limited to your understanding. But when God delays something, He's building something greater than your imagination can hold. He's putting the right people in place, arranging circumstances behind the scenes, and refining you so that when the moment comes, you're not just ready to receive the blessing, you're strong enough to carry it. During this season of delay, there is a divine purpose at work within you. Patience begins to grow roots. Your identity detaches from outcomes and reconnects to faith. You stop trying to force things and start learning to flow with divine timing. It's in this stillness, in this waiting, that you begin to sense God in a deeper way. You realize that not all progress is visible. Sometimes the greatest growth happens in hidden places. Just like a seed buried in the soil, there is life forming beneath the surface. And when the time is right, what once seemed buried will break through with power. This waiting season is also a filter. It separates desires that were temporary from those that are eternal. It clarifies your intentions. You start asking yourself, why do I want this? What will I do with it if it comes? This internal examination is essential. God is not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. And part of that preparation is making sure that what you're waiting for doesn't become more important than who you're becoming while you wait. Sometimes we are so focused on what we're waiting to receive, we forget what we're being invited to become. And the truth is, a big blessing in unprepared hands can become a burden. That's why God closes some doors. That's why He delays what you're not ready to hold. Because He loves you too much to give you something that would crush you. And when you understand that, you no longer see closed doors as rejection, you see them as redirection. You no longer resent delays, you revere them. So if you're in a season where the doors aren't opening, where the answers aren't coming, where nothing seems to be moving, pause, breathe, and remember, this is part of the process. The delay is not the end, it is the middle, and in the middle, God is still working. He is still speaking. He is still guiding. What's meant for you will not miss you. What's being prepared for you will arrive on time. Not your time, His time, and when it does, you'll see that every delay, every disappointment, and every detour was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. There comes a time when something inside you begins to stir. You may not see anything change on the outside, but within you, something begins to shift. It's a quiet awakening, like the first light before dawn. It doesn't come with loud announcements or immediate clarity. Instead, it arrives softly, often unnoticed at first. But as days pass, you begin to sense it more deeply. A pull, a calling, a feeling that something greater is approaching, even though you cannot explain why or how. This is one of the clearest signs that God is about to give you something big, a spiritual stirring within your soul. This stirring isn't rooted in anxiety or fear. It doesn't pressure you. It speaks gently, but it speaks consistently. It shows up in your thoughts, in your prayers, in moments of silence. You find yourself more reflective, more aware of your emotions, more in tune with your spirit. You begin asking deeper questions. You start to examine your habits, your priorities, your relationships. And without even trying, you start to separate from the things that no longer align with where you feel you're going. That's not coincidence, that's alignment. The stirring of the Spirit is God's way of preparing you before the shift happens. He begins working inside your heart before the breakthrough shows up in your life. The transformation begins in the unseen, long before the blessing becomes visible. But to respond to that stirring, you must be present. You must be willing to listen. This is difficult in a world full of noise. Distractions are everywhere, and it's easy to drown out that inner voice. But if you are quiet, if you are still, it will become clearer. And once it does, you will realize this feeling is not random. It's a divine invitation. This inner pull may lead you to new disciplines. You might suddenly feel drawn to wake up earlier, to pray more intentionally, to read, to write, to create. You may feel called to let go of old habits, not because someone told you to, but because your spirit no longer finds peace in them. These changes aren't forced. They're inspired. That's how you know they're coming from something higher. Your soul is preparing itself for expansion. You're being drawn into alignment with what God is about to bring into your life. At the same time, you may begin to feel uncomfortable in situations that once felt normal. Places that once gave you joy may now feel heavy. Conversations that used to entertain you may now seem pointless. It can feel disorienting at first, but don't ignore it. This discomfort is a sign that your spirit is growing. God is shifting your environment because your elevation requires a new atmosphere. You cannot stay where you are and expect to walk into what's next. Growth demands movement, sometimes outwardly, but always inwardly. As the stirring continues, your sensitivity to divine guidance increases. You start to see meaning in things you once overlooked. A conversation becomes confirmation. A passage of scripture speaks directly to your heart. A thought keeps repeating in your mind and won't leave. These are not coincidences, they're signposts. God is trying to get your attention. He doesn't always shout. Often he whispers, and those who are attuned will hear the message. They will recognize the signs not with their eyes, but with their spirit. This is a sacred season, one that requires patience, openness, and obedience. You might not have all the answers, but you don't need them. You just need to follow the feeling, take the next right step, trust the inner stirring even if others don't understand it. What God is doing in you is personal, it's unique. and it won't always make sense to those around you. That's okay. You're not being called to be understood. You're being called to be faithful. In time, everything will make sense. The inner pull you feel right now is the beginning of something divine, a new assignment, a new blessing, a new level of purpose, and when it arrives, you will recognize it, not just with your mind, but with your spirit. Because long before it appeared, you already felt it coming. That's the beauty of divine preparation. It always begins with the quiet stirring of the soul. As your spirit continues to awaken, you'll notice a strange but necessary change. Things start falling away. People you used to be close to may drift. Interests that once excited you begin to feel meaningless. Habits you depended on lose their grip. You may even feel guilty or confused, wondering if you're doing something wrong. But what you're experiencing is not a collapse, it's a cleansing. When God is about to give you something big, He doesn't just add to your life. He subtracts first. Because divine gifts cannot be placed into cluttered hands, something must be released before something greater can be received. Letting go is rarely easy. We tend to hold tightly to what we know, our comforts, our routines, our familiar relationships. But God doesn't work through comfort zones. He works through obedience, and often obedience requires surrender. When you begin to feel the urge to step back from people or activities that no longer resonate with your spirit, it's not a sign of coldness, it's a sign of alignment. God is pruning your life, trimming the unnecessary, not to leave you barren, but to prepare you for fruitfulness. There may be moments when the letting go feels lonely. It may feel like everything you once leaned on is being pulled away. But this is not a season of loss. It's a season of refinement. In fact, the very fact that things are being stripped away is evidence that something new is about to be built. What God is doing in you requires space. The old cannot survive in the same place where the new is about to grow. And even though it hurts, you'll begin to understand that the release is sacred. In this sacred release, you'll also start to feel lighter. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, the weight of unnecessary attachments begins to fall off. The clutter of opinions, expectations, and comparisons begins to clear. And for the first time in a long time, you start to breathe. You feel present. You feel still. That's not emptiness, it's readiness. God is making you available for what's next. The emptiness you feel is actually capacity being created. As that capacity grows, something else happens, clarity. Without the noise of distraction, you begin to hear your own thoughts. Without the constant pull of others, you begin to sense what you truly desire, what aligns with your soul. This clarity isn't intellectual, it's spiritual. It feels like peace. It feels like a quiet yes in your chest. That's the whisper of destiny. That's God showing you that what's being removed was never meant to carry you into the future. And what's coming will require this newfound clarity, so do not resist the release, trust it, bless what's leaving. Honor what it once gave you, but don't cling to it out of fear. God never takes something away without preparing something greater. And even though it may take time to fully see it, the process of release is one of the strongest confirmations that you are being positioned for something divine. The hands that let go are the same hands that will rise to receive. Resistance is often the final sign before breakthrough. When God is about to give you something big, things may not get easier at first. They may get harder. Confusion may intensify. Doubts may rise. Challenges may seem to multiply. You might even ask, why now? Why this battle? But this resistance is not random. It's spiritual pressure. It's the weight that comes just before the release. And the truth is, the greater the calling, the greater the opposition. What you're facing is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to strengthen you. It's meant to show you just how close you really are. Before every elevation, there's a testing. Before every miracle, there's a moment of struggle. This pattern is not new. It's divine design. Look back at any story of transformation, and you will see this truth. The pressure always comes before the promise. And right now, if it feels like the pressure is on all sides, take heart. It means something is shifting. It means something is being pushed into place. It means what God promised is on the verge of becoming reality. But to step into it, you must stand. This resistance may not always come in obvious ways. Sometimes it looks like mental fatigue. Other times it appears as unexpected setbacks, misunderstandings with people, or even internal battles you thought you already won. Old fears might resurface. Temptations may grow stronger. These are not signs that you're failing. They are signs that the enemy senses your growth. Resistance is a response to momentum. The battle you're in now is proof that you're no longer standing still. This is the moment where many give up when the heat rises, when the delays feel endless, when prayers feel unanswered. But what separates those who step into the fullness of what God has for them is not talent or status. It's endurance. It's the refusal to quit when everything in you wants to. It's the discipline to keep showing up, to keep praying, to keep believing, even when you can't see results. This is the soil where breakthrough is born. In the resistance, you are being refined. You are learning to rely not on feelings, but on faith. You are learning to trust the process, even when the path is unclear. And in that trust, something begins to build inside you, resilience. You start to recognize that strength isn't the absence of struggle, it's the ability to stay rooted in the storm. That's the kind of strength needed to carry the blessing that's coming, because what God gives you won't just elevate your life, it will carry weight. And He's preparing you to hold it. So don't mistake resistance for rejection. Don't assume opposition means you've taken the wrong path. More often than not, resistance is confirmation. It's heaven's way of saying, keep going. The winds may be strong, but they're only blowing because you're moving. And if you keep walking, even through the pressure, even through the pain, you will see that everything you're facing now is shaping you for what's ahead. You're not being buried, you're being planted, and soon the fruit will speak for itself. There is a moment on the journey when everything quiets, not just around you, but within you. You've battled, you've endured, you've let go, you've grown, and now you're standing in a place that feels unfamiliar. Not because something is wrong, but because something is shifting. Deep within, there is no more striving, no more forcing. There is only a quiet surrender. You begin to realize that the next chapter can't be manufactured by effort alone. It must be received. This is the final sign before something big from God is revealed, the call to trust without evidence. It's a hard place to be in. Logic doesn't support your faith. Circumstances don't reflect your prayers. Nothing around you looks like what you were promised, and yet something in your heart keeps whispering, wait, be still, it's coming. This is where real faith lives, not in outcomes, but in obedience, not in guarantees, but in surrender. You reach a place where you stop asking when and start saying yes, a quiet yes, a strong yes, a faithful yes. This level of trust is not passive, it is deeply active. It's a daily decision to walk forward even when you don't know where the road will lead. It's choosing to believe when nothing around you validates that belief. It's waking up with peace, not because you see the solution, but because you know who holds it. You begin to understand that God doesn't owe you explanations, He offers you invitations. And the biggest invitation of all is this: will you trust me even when it doesn't make sense? This surrender often brings a supernatural calm. You stop needing to control everything. You stop trying to open doors by your own strength. You stop needing validation, and in that release, you create space for God to move, space for things to fall into place without your interference. You step into the rhythm of grace, where things align not because you chased them, but because you were prepared to receive them. In this surrendered posture, your perception changes. You start to see with spiritual eyes. You notice small confirmations, things others might miss. A sentence someone says that speaks to your situation, a scripture that seems to shine, a moment of stillness where clarity finds you. These are the quiet signatures of God, His fingerprints on your journey. You begin to realize that while you may not have the full picture, you've been given enough light for the next step. And that's all you need. This kind of trust is not weakness, it's strength. It's the strength to say, I don't need to see the outcome to believe in it. It's the strength to release expectations and embrace timing that's not your own. It's the kind of strength that prepares you not just to receive the blessing, but to carry it with humility and grace. Because what God is about to give you isn't just for you. It's meant to overflow, to touch others, to glorify Him. And that's why it comes through trust, not pride. So if you feel like you're walking in the dark, take heart. You are not lost, you are being led. What looks like delay is often divine orchestration. What feels like silence is often sacred preparation. And when the time comes when heaven releases what has been stored up for you, you will understand why it required so much trust. Because only the surrendered can carry what is holy, and only the faithful can handle what is big.